What's up, everybody? It's the Entrepreneurial Rap, episode 25, alongside Brett, Regan, and David Brickley.
Congrats on 25, man.
Yeah,
milestone.
Big milestone. We are joined by Tony Raval from FrescoData. He's the CEO and co-founder. What's going on, Tony?
Nice to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you very
for
much.
Coming.
We'll jump right into it and just talk about, I think, FrescoData. We always tell people to kind of give us their elevator pitch of what their company is all about, so we'll start there.
What I tell everybody is that we sell email lists, and it just sounds very boring. And then I get into the details is that we sell email data of consumers and businesses across 60 countries. This is legal opt-in data that is CAN spam compliant across many different regions, collected through many different sources. And we help companies achieve their goal for mainly email marketing through these lists that we sell.
How many industries does that span?
That's across 20 different industries.
Wow.
We segment it with industries and go very deep in with our demographics in the data.
Very cool. We're going to dive real deep into that stuff, but we want to try to go back a little bit and start with your upbringing and really how you became an entrepreneur. So let's go back.
Sure.
And where were you? How was your family life like, and where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in India, and I came from a very humble upbringing, middle-class family in India, and grew up with. I have one sister who is about 11 years younger than me, so practically grew up by myself for the first 11 years. A typical middle-class Indian family where education has a lot of importance. Throughout the initial years, very close-knit family, just like any other Indian family. And my mother was a driving force behind, that. And, growing up there, you just had to study.
Yeah, describe your experience at school in the early stages. What were you studying? Did you enjoy school?
Yeah, I had a great schooling life. I enjoyed school very much. I can say that I was a good student whenever I wanted to be one. And but overall, growing up in India, especially if you are coming from a middle class background, there is a lot of importance that the parents put on education, and you have to study to become something, and they push you a lot into medicine and engineering fields.
Now, is the idea for, if your parents are driving you there, is it to become an engineer or a physician in India?
Yes.
Okay.
They don't really, the cultures have changed. The times have changed. Previously, when I was growing up in India, it was a different time. And yes, absolutely, it was about becoming an engineer or into the medicine field in India itself. They just want you to succeed there.
So obviously within that, it seems like they're driving you towards physician route or driving you towards engineer route. And at some point, you had to realize like you're an entrepreneur and you kind of wanted to do your own thing. So did you notice that younger in life that you wanted to stray away from maybe the common path?
I did. My first stint along the entrepreneurial route was there's a festival in India. It's a kite flying festival. It happens every year in January. It's on 14th and 15th of Jan, and pretty much all the cities are on shutdown, and everybody flies kites, and it's competitive, and you cut each other's kites, and so it's a very good seasonal business. And I was about 13 or 14, and I bought kites from found out a manufacturer, and bought kites in bulk from him. And there's a string that is used to fly those kites, specific type, and I bought that and kind of created my own social media network with letting friends and families know that this year you're going to buy this stuff from me.
Interesting. This is 13, 14.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And prior to that, did you have, if your parents were talking about some of these other careers, did you, even at a young age, younger than 13, think that that was your path? Or was there some other type of North Star for you where you felt like I'm going to be, an athlete or a, actor or anything else?
If you grow up in India in the 90s or the 80s, you pretty much want to be a Bollywood star or a cricket player.
Right.
And I wanted to be both.
Okay. Did you take any steps towards?
I did. I played cricket from my college when I went to college there.
Awesome.
But never really went past that because, you're told that you have to be in medicine or engineering, but at least that's what I was told.
No acting?
Just acting in school and college, that's it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. It was limited to that.
So the first entrepreneurial hustle is essentially selling kites to friends and family before the big festival. Any other ones in that teenage area that you remember?
The other one that I remember was I came across when I was in college. I came across this company that used to do market research, and they used to do it on behalf of different brands. What they would do is it was an anonymous survey that they would do and interview people or bring kids into a conference room at a hotel and interview them about kids products and something like that. So I went in and I pitched in our own service saying I will help you guys out by bringing people in to collect that crowd. And I worked as a consultant to bring people for them to interview. So it was pretty good.
So at what point, so you went to college in India as well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess at what point do you have to break it to your folks that I'm not going to go the engineer or physician route and how they take that?
It's pretty much, kind of, when you're studying in India, your grades every year are dictating how you're doing in life. Your parents really want you to succeed, and my mother kind of assumed the head of the household role at one point after my father got really sick, and she was the driving force behind, and she expected me to at least have the top scores in everything, and there is no specific point that they realize. It's just that when you're growing and you're going through your education, depending on what kind of grades you get, and you don't get into medical school, and then you don't get into a specific side of business, but I ended up in computers, so they were happy about it.
That's so looking back at that, because the States, I think, from a cultural standpoint, is not as hard or strict, I guess, on their kids when it comes to you get A's. And I would imagine if you're not passionate about a subject, or maybe you just didn't have it that week and you got a bad test score, is that just like a deal breaker and you are kind of grounded almost if that happens? Like, what do you, looking back at that, what are your thoughts?
Well, parents love their kids, right? No matter what. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter whether it's India or China or United States or UK or Canada. So it's not an absolute deal breaker. However, they do get a little disheartened. You grow up in a culture, in a society, you have friends and family, and there's always comparison. That my friend's son, he got great grades and he got into medical school, and what's your son doing? Oh, he's playing cricket. So he's playing cricket. Yeah.
So that's almost like a social equity almost.
It is. It absolutely is.
Right?
Yeah.
And did your mother work?
She did. Yeah, she
after
worked.
your father got sick, or
yes.
did she work throughout
Well,
your
she
life?
was working before that too, but she worked even more harder, I would say, to kind of make sure that the family finances are intact. And she worked full time, and she was a finance manager at a corporate company in India. So
okay.
Yeah.
Was it at that time, was it uncommon for a mother to work, or that's
No,
pretty
not
standard?
really. No. Most of the families, the spouses, a lot of spouses used to work. I wouldn't say very common, but majority of the spouses did used to work at that time, so it
Okay.
wasn't that uncommon.
And what career was your father in?
It's funny. My father was in business, and he was a movies distributor.
Huh.
Okay.
Bollywood films, Indian movies.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a film distributor. Would distribute movies into a specific region where I grew up, and would get movies from from Bombay, which is what it was called before. Now it's called Mumbai, into the Bollywood from our region, and distributed it to the movie theaters, cinemas, all of that.
So even though he was in the movie industry, was he still the driving force behind, again, the same cultural thing of physician or engineer, or did he kind of understand that what he did is also a path you may potentially take on as well?
At that time, yes, he was also of the opinion that I should pursue something in the medicine or engineering
Interesting.
fields, because I think, because he got a setback early on in his life with his health. I think he felt that,
They almost felt that's the easiest, not easiest, but the most efficient route for ultimate success is kind of go that route.
exactly.
Right.
It's the most efficient route for you to succeed in that much of a competitive India.
Yeah.
1 billion people.
Yeah.
And if you come from a middle class family that doesn't have a lot of financial backing, then where do you end up if
Right.
you don't have good education?
So at what point in college, you said you got into computers, so is that in the first couple of years of college you decided like this is definitely a route that I'd like to go?
I ended up being in computer science just because I did my bachelor's initially with chemistry as my major. And we were given options on what we want to choose, and I chose computers. And when I took a few classes, I really liked it. It came really natural to me. And at that time, I knew that I really want to dig deeper.
And what year are we talking about here?
We're talking about 98.
98.
Yes.
Okay. So this is maybe like C++.
Well, 98 was towards the end. We're talking about 1994.
Okay.
So we're talking about, we're talking about the
Windows
initial
95 is
stages. Yeah, Windows 95. We're talking about DOS programming, Windows Fox Pro, COBOL language programming, some really rudimentary stages of programming.
Okay. Interesting. But you enjoyed that. You maybe have a quant brain a little bit where you were able to easily understand the languages.
I really did. I really did. I enjoyed that part. I enjoyed the analytical part of it. So it came naturally to me. And just...
That's really perfect timing too. 'Cause that's really when the personal computer era really began.
It
It
did.
was in the early 90s and started to have some front-facing games and apps and really having your normal person being able to call up command lines and launch programs. So did you see that trajectory? Like this is going to be huge one day and everybody's going to have a computer potentially in their house or in their pocket. Did you see that potential even back then?
I saw the potential that the computing industry is gonna scale really high
Right.
in 10 years. That's what I saw. The way in those days we were able to do things. There were no smartphones, there were no apps.
The floppy disk was.
The floppy disk, and then came the USB,
Yeah.
and then came the CD drive storage.
Yep.
So the way that was advancing, I saw that this is going to move really, really fast, and with the advancement of internet, of all things, it became more clearer.
So at that point in time, considering that you probably were thinking about getting a job out of college, or were you already considering becoming an entrepreneur?
No, I was thinking about getting a job out of college.
So what did a typical job prospect look like at that point in time with your background?
My first job out of college was, being a computer teacher at a very small institute, computing institute that taught students, advanced computing fundamentals. These were students that had finished college, had no computer experience, have either done business management or something like that, but don't know much about computers and want to learn.
Yeah.
So
That's interesting because I feel like now in the internet era, if you think of somebody who would be graduating college with
Right.
coding or development, the sky's the limit. You could go to Silicon Valley and start up your own company, or you could go to a Google and, sky's the limit. But back then, it seems like it would have had to have been, in a lot of cases, teaching or working for like a larger company, but you couldn't just, it would have been difficult to just start your own thing with computing because there was, a lot of, you'd have to spend a lot of money, I would assume, to even just get.
there wasn't much
door.
exposure. Also being in India, with the whole thing about outsourcing and everything, it wasn't that prevalent in
Yeah.
in the 90s. There wasn't the people's brains were not wired to think like that. That this is what we could do with computers. And what happens is, what I believe is that if you start off as in a computer field or any other field as a teacher of the education that you specialize in, your roots become really strong. Once you teach
They say
someone,
you don't know it unless you can teach it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Once you teach, and it was a small institute of about 50 students, and I was out of college, and it was a fun job for me. Paid nothing compared to what we consider right now. Probably was paid like $70 a month.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Is
$70
that
a
even
month.
a living wage at that time in India?
Not really a living wage, but it was okay, at that time. And
So you were living with your parents at that point?
I was living
still?
with my parents
Okay,
at that
that
time,
helps.
so I didn't really have any mortgage or no other payments.
So what was the next chapter after the teaching?
The next chapter after the teaching, really, there was a very small stint, and a lot of American companies were coming to India to hire trained professionals, on the computing side, and I was interviewed by at least 5 different companies at that time,
All from the States?
all from the States.
Now, was that really when the era was starting to happen there, when there was more outsourcing?
Not
Beginning,
really outsourcing. You can say that there was the era of kind of an influx of,
Right.
Indian and kind of like the Asian brain power coming into the country.
Right.
Using work visas and stuff like that.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
is the idea for them to recruit you and bring you to the United States, or are these U.S. companies with Asia-based locations looking for talent to stay in India?
No, back then it was to recruit you and bring you here.
Okay. What
Yeah.
are some of the companies?
Back then, there were a lot of independent agencies and consultants that used to work on behalf of, a lot of big companies here, like Microsoft. Back then was huge. That they wanted to bring people over here.
Well, at that point too, the internet's obviously not as quick. You don't have things like Skype and all that, and it's probably really difficult to have remote employees anyway.
Just recruiting, period.
yeah,
would
so
be difficult.
it has to be. You have to be here in a cubicle so I can see you and work with you.
Yeah,
That's
and
part of the recruitment process.
we thought Yahoo Chat was really cool back then.
Yeah.
There was no Skype. Yeah.
So when they were trying to bring you over, was that because of a lack of a talent pool in the States, or was this something where they felt like they could get equal talent for a lesser price than you could get them for in the United States?
I think it was both.
Okay.
I think it was definitely both. They saw that that they could find really skilled brain power, out of the country, as well as it was also the wages that they pay. They would be able to hire someone at a lower rate.
So before that recruitment process, were you early on in life or through college, was that ever a goal of yours to eventually work in the United States and move out this way? Or,
Never.
So that just kind of sprung like maybe I can think about doing that.
It just sprung because, growing up in India and entirely, with my education, my thought process was always to do something in India.
Of course. yeah.
I never thought that this would be another route that my life will take, by just coming to U.S. Because you're young, you're aggressive and enthusiastic, want to do something. Yeah, it never.
Well, that's all
occurred
you know, right? I mean, your family's there and everything you know is
Yeah.
in India. So what, you know, they're-
And so was it out of that recruiting pool, you said about 5 different companies interviewed you, was it out of that experience that you took the first move to the U.S.?
I did. Yes,
Okay.
it was out of that. I took my first.
and how old are you at this point?
I was 21.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how did your family react?
They were okay. They felt that it was probably for the best. Computing industry was much more advanced here than it was in India. They thought that I would get a better exposure being here. Obviously, not very happy because I'll be living here and not there. So
I think when I was 20, I moved 2 hours south from my parents' house to San Diego State. And that was kind of a big deal. I mean, even being that far away from family. So talk about that a little bit, because I mean, you can't just hop on a plane and be there in a couple hours. You're moving across the world to start at 21 years old. And I would assume you don't know anybody. You really don't have any kind of base out here at that point. So that's a big
yeah, that's a
cultural
huge
shock.
move. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cultural shock. It takes a lot for you to assimilate within the culture. But when you're young, you can mold yourself easily too. You can make friends easily. You're ready to explore new places, new cultures. And I grew up in a very, very, very open-minded society. Even back then in India, my family was very advanced, very open-minded. So obviously it was a big move. It's 24 hours the other side
Yeah.
of the world.
Right.
And
So when you land in the U.S. at 21 years old, do you remember what the weirdest thing about our culture was, or something that just like struck you as different that we do?
the freeways.
Yeah.
What about,
My first experience was like, man, the cars are so fast here because
75
India
miles.
there's so much traffic, back in those days, and the infrastructure and on the highways and stuff was not this well laid out. And I'm like, wow, the cars can go this fast, like there is so much space.
and was this your
Fine.
first time in the States when
Was
you
my-
moved here
Wow.
for the job? So sight unseen. Now, so this is during a time where there was a lot of talent pulled from India, Asia to the United States, referred to as brain drain. Was there any negative feedback from any friends, any outward family? Because I've talked to some people that have moved from other countries, and for them it was a really hard decision, not just to leave their family, but in a certain sense, they had people telling them like, you're abandoning your country. Was there any of that type of feedback from everyone, or did you have a lot of support?
I had a lot of support. It's always tough to leave your family. I mean, I grew up in an Indian family in India, and it's always an extended family. 90,000 cousins and 20,000 aunts and uncles, and it's like you never feel alone. And that was one of the things that I also missed. Being here is that not having such a huge support group.
Yeah.
It's like extended cousins, extended family members. But no, I had a great deal of support.
Okay.
Everybody was really happy that I was going to a place where I can, really prosper myself and
Spread your wings, man.
fulfill the American dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did this feel like the offer monetarily was something you couldn't refuse, or was it also maybe just like exciting, worth a try? What was the?
It was both.
Okay.
It was offer monetarily that I couldn't refuse, as well as I just at that time I didn't really know what my true potential was. I wanted to explore a lot of different things. It was offer monetarily. It was the whole, the chance of coming to the United States.
So for an equivalent position in India and the offer they gave you, can you talk, I guess, numbers about what they offered you and what you could have got in the open market in India?
In those days,
Yeah.
probably about 1/7 or 1/8 of what I
Wow.
got paid here.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. India is very different now.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, like now they get paid really handsomely.
Yeah.
In,
But essentially, it's like going from 20 grand a year to $140,000 a year. Like if somebody offers you $140,
Yeah.
you're on the first flight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the wages were not that high at that time either, even in even in U.S. And so, but yeah, I mean,
The math, yeah, hypothetically, the
overall, yes, it was
7 times more.
definitely a huge raise.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you come to the United States, what is the position specifically, and what company are you working with? What are you doing?
When I came to the United States, I started working for, it was a small consulting company that used to do projects for various different companies, and I was placed at Verizon Wireless in Chicago. And a position was a computer programmer. And funny enough, I was appointed as someone who would do data analytics and programming and researching and getting intelligence out of all this call data. Why are calls being dropped? Why are however many towers are needed in a specific area? How many drop calls? What is the highest? The heavy time usage during the day, all that kind of stuff. So.
And what's all that being routed through? All internal software they had to monitor all that?
It was all internal, yes. It was all custom built, software that they had. And
So that's, I mean, Chicago too. That's a cold place to start.
it is.
But what year is that?
This is the year 2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Actually, sorry, 1999.
So a year after Jordan's era, Michael
Yeah.
Jordan's era. So how many years are you spending in that field before the entrepreneur in you starts to kind of fire up and start thinking about going your own route?
I spent about 6 years, about 7 years working in that field. I also worked at ESPN in New York.
And this is for the same consulting agency. Your
No,
project
it was different.
Okay.
I became a contractor, and I switched to a lot of different jobs. It was a best way for me to explore different culture. Different areas of United States,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I didn't mind, just packing up my bags and
And at
moving.
that point, your skill set's data analytics, so you can come into ESPN and whatever, their mobile app or their website. Or
Exactly, and I loved doing that, and so I lived in a lot of different places.
So 99, 2000, this is the height of the dot-com bubble.
It is.
Was there a draw at any point to move to the West Coast to try your hand in Silicon Valley, or did you prefer staying East Coast?
I didn't really know much about the geography of U.S. I didn't really care where I was. Doesn't matter as long as I always had this instinct inside me that I want to do something with data. I want to put data 10 years ahead of where it is right now. I was always thinking, what excites me is intelligence within the data. There's a lot of floating around like big data and all that stuff, and what does that really mean, to people? And it's the intelligence behind data. And so, yeah, I never really had a draw to move out here. It just happened.
Okay.
And every industry that I always talk about, you have to kind of geek out in your specific industry. So if you're in sales, you have to geek out about the process of sales and closing
Sure.
that client and seeing that proposal and crossing your fingers. When it came to data analytics, what was the part of it that really made you passionate or just kind of light you up when you maybe found that problem or that solution to an issue, or what was an example if you can give one?
When it came to data analytics, my background, I did my master's in computer sciences and data architecture. And it came really naturally to me to read through the data. Even at this point, at this stage, even today,
Yeah.
I can take a look at some raw data files, and I could understand what is the actual intelligence behind this database. What excited me was that there were a lot of problems that companies could resolve by looking through their own customer base, by looking through the demographics of their customer bases.
And having that dictate sales and marketing
Exactly.
in the future.
Yeah, and then which they weren't doing at that time. They should be doing that at that time, but that and my idea of presenting intelligent data for marketing, it it gave me this perspective that when I'm talking to a client, I can really understand their need and their problem of what they're trying to do and offer data as a solution.
So can you give me a few more, I guess, dumb it down a little bit for me from a data standpoint? So for instance, at Verizon, you're saying that, hey, every time people are going through this certain area of the city or what have you, the calls are dropping every single time, so we need to increase infrastructure.
Yeah.
Is that kind of an example of
It is.
what you're providing? Okay.
Yeah. What we provide right now is we talk to clients, prospects, and figure out, what are they trying to do first? What is their target audience? Is your target audience really who you think it is? Sometimes you're targeting someone, you think that, oh, this is the perfect guy, in the company. I want to reach out to the buyer at Walmart, or, that's a perfect guy, but, I want to reach out to an HR director or to sell my products within that company. But we try to understand what their target audience is and then go through our database and figure out a solution for them.
Gotcha.
And what we think would work for them.
So even back at Verizon, ESPN, you really started with the goal or the North Star and then worked your way backwards to try to develop a system or process or
Absolutely.
arm them with data to get there.
Yeah, it was a process-oriented job where, for a lot of people, data is kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on, man. Like who wants to read through all this stuff and then actually create a program that makes it look intelligent and make data look sexy? Those two words don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Data and sexy is completely two different things. But when it actually creates a report that has a meaning to you, and shows you, what you can improve to increase your finances and all that stuff, it becomes really important.
Now, at what point did you think, hey, I can be 100% independent, I can start my own company? At what time did that occur and what led to that?
It occurred when I started the company, and I thought that that was the time. If it was a phase where I felt that it's now or never, to start my own business.
And you felt that way because of your age, or what was why did you feel now or never?
I felt that way because of the experience that I had and the age, as well as my partner, who also comes a little bit from a data sales background. We both had this idea that we saw a product. We had an idea that we can mold data in such a way that it could be a very unique offering in the industry that it doesn't exist. And that was the passion behind it, that now's the time to do it, or we'll not get that opportunity and someone else will do it.
And how did that come to fruition? Did you guys work at the same company? How'd you meet and how'd you come to that conclusion?
My partner is a childhood friend of mine.
Okay.
And so we've known each other for the longest period. And we worked at the same company briefly for about a year, but we weren't really getting satisfied with a 9-to-5 routine.
Yeah.
I guess that was the entrepreneurial tick inside us. And we always felt that, after 5 p.m., there was a lot more to do besides just a 9-to-5 job. So that's when we decided we quit our jobs, went cold turkey, and jumped into the business right away.
And that was FrescoData in its current form?
That was FrescoData in its current form.
Wow.
Yes.
And were you, I see a ring on your finger now, were you single at the time when you took this leap?
Yes, that's actually a very good question. I was single at that time and had just met my current wife, and during that phase of us starting the company, so very challenging because we're strapped with finances, and then there is a girlfriend who you want to impress.
Yeah.
And I used to drive my friend's car to go see her. Because my car wasn't that impressive, and so
That's funny.
So, did you, I guess it's really interesting for David and I to figure out what your expectation was when you said we're making the leap, here's what we're doing, did you have a very clear business plan, or was it more of, hey, we're just going to start this and figure it out?
No, we had a very clear business plan. We started FrescoData. Fresco.
The business plan was based on data, I'm sure.
Yeah, but that's the quant brain, because Sarah,
Yeah.
the previous person we interviewed,
Sarah,
yeah, was totally just said, I'm jumping and we're going to
I
figure
got
it
one
out.
client, we'll figure
And
it out.
David and I were very similar in
Yeah.
that, so it's funny to hear from a quant that yes, it was
Yeah.
very detailed.
Yeah.
No, we had a plan. We didn't have a plan of how the money's going to come in. We didn't have a plan of how it's going to turn out in terms of sales. It wasn't really a perfectly designed startup model, but I knew what the data should look like. Fresco means fresh in Italian. That's how we came up with that term, FrescoData, and that's the motto. You know, we want to supply fresh data. And when you talk about data, you know, in the data industry, the way it works is there's compiled data and then there is response data. Compiled means people can get data from online directories and web scraping and, you know, yellow pages, white pages, anything, anywhere that is online, you can compile it. You know.
So it's like public-facing data. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, public usage, open. You can also compile data from back in the days, county courthouses. You know, we used to supply data to mortgage companies for, you know, there was a subprime boom. You know, they wanted to reach out to the subprime lenders. You know, and that was actually the first of our business. We started supplying data and to the mortgage industry. And then there's also other part, which is response data. Response means that a user has generated some kind of response, right? They're a subscriber to a newsletter of some kind, magazine subscribers, people that attend trade shows.
Or signed up for a prize giveaway. Or
Signed up for a prize giveaways, you know, promos, sweepstakes, something like that, where, you know, if you are advertising your product, you know that this person has generated a response of some kind. So what my idea was to combine both of these and create a huge database offering to the clients.
So in the early stages, I'm assuming it's about building your database so you have the leverage to say, hey, we have this amazing, fresh database that we can offer to you. How do you even begin to develop that, or did you have that already when you started the company? Or
we had relationships with, from my experience of working in the data industry, we had partnerships that we had developed with a lot of different data sources, you know, like magazine subscribers, you know, that will rent your list. We can manage that list. First couple of years was really hardcore product development, even though we felt that going into the business we had a great product, that we had established all this, you know, relationships with the data sources who are going to give us data, and then we're going to rent that data out to the clients. But you always find out while you grow, you know, how you really want to mold your product that you're offering to the client so that it works for them, you know.
So essentially your unique value proposition was that you were taking all of the compiled data and then scrubbing that to the response data to make sure that
matching that with the response data and adding more and more demographics. You know, if you're trying to contact business contacts, we would segment it by demographics like, you know, what's the employee size like, the company that you're targeting? Who are you trying to target? C-level, HR, IT, we can segment all of that.
And at this point, is there anybody in the space doing that specifically? Like,
there were a few companies, you know, that were already doing that, but nothing on a global scale.
right?
Nothing, no one, you know, U.S. had a lot of companies that were, you know, doing that, you know, but no, I don't know any other company that has such a huge data set with proper demographics and emails to reach out to prospects across 60 countries.
So, as an example, if an alcohol distributor wanted to reach out to bars in San Diego, not only can you say here's the purchaser or bar owner, but you can potentially give them age, annual revenue of the company, et cetera, and just give more refined data.
We can refine it by, whether this business is a franchise.
Wow.
Do you want to reach only franchises? Do you want to not reach the franchises? Do you want to reach the owner? Do you want to reach the office manager?
Only companies that have been in business for a certain amount of years.
Exactly.
Like that.
Certain amount of years. A lot of different segmentations, and the consumer is a completely different ballgame. We have
So you are writing that program to segment it properly, so you can offer that to your clients.
Absolutely.
Say it's the most fresh, segmented data that you can possibly get on the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, when you're building this, is it, because I would assume that, even just like a normal CSV document, and then you're building like a beautiful front-facing, client-facing, is that kind of what you were creating for them? Because you had all this, incredible data. Was part of the problem to then create that front-facing client portal, or were you more of the service provider to say, let us know what you're looking to send, and we're going to send it on your behalf to this segment?
So that's a very good question. Initially, it started off as offering something as a e-commerce UI-based application where we have the data in the background, and here's your user interface. Buy the data that you want, pay for it, and you can use that data, upload your creative that for the message you want to send out, and the system will do that.
And in that scenario, are they seeing the list, or does it just tell them, hey, you've got X number of people that meet
Kind of
this
like
criteria?
Facebook ads or something. Yeah.
They're seeing the list.
Okay.
At that point when we started.
Yeah. And I don't know enough about the industry to know, but that seems like tough, because theoretically you could sell somebody enough to where they could buy your entire business.
Correct. And that was one of the, we learned and kind of tried. It's a perfection that is going on a daily basis,
Yeah.
right? In your every business. Offering the data product as an e-commerce doesn't always work well because, one, we opened it to so many different countries. We had a lot of credit card scam. There is no way to identify the user who's buying the data, which looks like, oh, he's legit and he's used the credit card to buy the data. He's just spent $5,000. He got the data. Now what? It's not a tangible product you can return or claim for it. That's number one. Number two, over the period of years, the data industry, the global compliance, the CAN-SPAM laws have changed so much that the data sources don't like to put their data out in front of and give it out to the clients, unless the product has been verified. And we now do the emails on behalf of the client, so that to protect the security of the data, the sensitivity of the people in the database. And so now, we take their product, their creative, we help them also.
Because essentially, if you give a list to somebody, then you have no control what they then do with that list, but then it reflects poorly on you.
Exactly. Yeah. And
it hurts the list.
It hurts the list. And if you are talking about a response list, let's say subscribers of Golf Digest, right? You want to send out an email to them. They're not going to give you the subscribers list. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't let them release their subscribers list to anybody.
Yeah.
They're going to look at your product.
That's priceless.
Exactly. Yeah, and they're going to make sure that their competitor is not bombarding their list, or something like that. So it has to be a really protected list that follows all the CAN-SPAM laws.
And so for the compiled data, it seems like that's something where you can probably, through your existing relationships, be able to get a ton of that relatively quickly and easily. On the other side, like the Golf Digest situation you mentioned, it seems like a lot of relationships and trust-based.
It is. It's called the list management aspect of the industry, where it's completely relations-based. We are giving an assurance to these magazines, periodicals, whatever that is. Any company that is providing their list of subscribers or customers to you to market, we have to be very careful in protecting them to what kind of offer. We partner with an organization in Europe that has the largest expatriate population over the globe. You want to reach out to expats living in U.S. That are, that are from Europe or Middle East or Asia. We can get that data, but we're going to take your creative. We're going to, make sure that it meets all the expectations of, the database that it's going to go out to. It's not going to hurt anybody's sentiment, and that's how we do it. So,
at what point did you get out of startup phase where you and your partner kind of grinding and doing all the back end stuff and really started to scale the company and hire employees? Was that pretty early on, or did it take a while to get your feet underneath it?
It took a while, at least about till the third year of the company. We hired a lot of virtual talent, which was contractors, consultants that worked online with us, not necessarily from within the office. But it took at least about between 2 and 3 years for us to hire people and try to scale the company to the next level.
What's your current company look like in terms of virtual employees here in San Diego and then globally, I guess?
Well, physically, globally, we have close to about 100 employees.
Wow.
And plus, we work with virtual.
A lot of contractors.
A lot of contractors, because we're supplying data in 60 countries. And there is so much talent in these countries that you can explore virtually, really skilled mindsets. You can work with people from within the country. That helps us a lot because they understand their data
on the ground,
very well, from within the country. And it's
And out of the 100 physical employees, what's the breakdown generally into roles? Are these data analysts? Are these customer service, sales?
About 60% of the company's employees are data analysts, research, and quality assurance that work pretty much right behind the product.
Okay.
The remainder of the company is sales, marketing, operations, and.
As you start to scale, I'm always fascinated by this. How do you ensure that the mission statement or the quality control is expanded, especially when you're talking about virtual employees and people around the globe? How do you make sure you can put your stamp of FrescoData on your list, on your data, on your analytics? How have you found a way to really spread that message and make sure everybody's on the up and up?
That's again a very good question. The way we do that is by bringing the core values that we share with all the virtual staff, explaining them that this is what we are trying to do. When we work on any kind of new data, new relationship that we have formed, our in-house staff that knows our core values works directly with them and explains them what we are trying to do, what kind of product we need, what kind of focus we have in terms of
It's almost a
clients.
project manager than people underneath them
Exactly.
to get the goal
So
done.
we have someone that really understands stuff about a company that works with an outsider or a virtual employee and explains them what we are trying to do in our core values.
And if you can dissolve that into like a very 1 or 2 sentences, what are you having your project managers reflect down to the independent contractors as like the company's goal or the company's mission?
Growth, very innovative, and honesty is what we really have our project managers instill in everybody.
So that way they're not getting funky lists or doing something shady to get additional data.
That's why 60% of our staff is data quality and research. It's all about the product. The sales, literally these days, people come to us. They find us online. They find us through events and shows that we go to. But it's all about the product that we are offering.
But yeah, it's a very interesting industry because, like you said, your reputation is on the line, and one virtual contractor that may be doesn't uphold that same standard, sells a list illegally, or violates the spam laws. So the quality assurance, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it looks like you have like 60 people.
We don't really let anybody who's virtual sell data on our behalf.
Gotcha.
Or these are all people that are data compilers, have data sources. Either a contractor who has a data source that works really well for a specific industry.
So it goes through the levels before you can put your stamp on it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when the data is released for the client for their campaign, it has gone through a detailed verification process.
Now, from a pricing standpoint, I can see where this could be really difficult to determine, what your price is per, lead or whatever that means, line of data, because in addition to the fact that you've got your own margins to protect for your own business model, but incredibly competitive space, I would assume.
It is.
And there's a lot of people that probably have those same names and the same people.
And you mentioned too, like someone looking for the buyer at Walmart, like that can, for some people, can be worth tens of thousands of dollars to get that contact.
Sure.
So how do you determine the right pricing from sector to sector?
My initial goal, actually, this is something that I really would like to do, revolutionize the data industry by offering intelligent data for marketing at a very affordable pricing. It's very competitive. There are so many companies that sell crappy data, junk data. They sell like, you want US-based businesses and contacts. Here's a CD of 10 million contacts for $99. Might as well throw away your $99. It's like you're going to spend time and energy in contacting those people and all that stuff. But it's a very competitive market. But what we are showing the clients is, along with the pricing that we offer, what else do we offer on top of it, along with data? Intelligent data that performs really well, that gives you an ROI. We know what kind of email campaign will have what type of open rate. You're sending out 50,000 emails. How many people will open that email? Do we have the capacity where we can land an email in an inbox? Do you know if your current provider has that capacity? How many people will open the email? How many people will actually click within the email? So we store all the statistics. We share with them as a case study for each industry too, that we have worked with.
How much is it strictly 100% based on email, or does it?
No, so there is a lot of direct mail data too that we sell. We have some really big clients that use direct mail data in bulk. It's still a very big industry. Direct mail works really well.
Do you have political campaigns?
No, we don't. Not at this point. We've been approached by companies to do political campaigns because we have consumer data.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to ask you the least favorite part of the business that you're in, and I'll preface it with saying I'm assuming trying to rise above those other competitors out there that kind of make the industry look bad with their shady business practices. That's one thing that feels like you have to fight against almost daily to ensure that you rise above that.
Yeah, it is. The least favorite part is also making clients understand what good data really is. When you are a small business or a mid-sized business, you're gonna look at what type of amount do you want to spend behind sending an email blast or an email campaign, right? If someone offers to send that at 1/3 of a price what you're offering, you're going to be like, let me spend my money there.
So explain the quality over quantity type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's quality over quantity. And not that we're that expensive, we've designed the product in such a way that, we also offer other services like it's not just an email campaign. After an email campaign has been sent, we can do retargeting for people that open the email based on their browser. With our clients' ads appear there with their impression. So just doesn't end at where the email marketing ends. It's also retargeting. We offer them social media campaigns to our clients. Overall, a lot of stuff just besides email lists.
I use this example a lot, but it was a one weekend I was on Facebook and an ad came up on Facebook in the stream that said Dave Chappelle has just opened up a new show on Sunday, last chance, get your tickets. And I love Dave Chappelle. I clicked it within seconds and it was amazing. Me and my buddy went the next day. So as a consumer or as somebody that was targeted, I was happy that I was targeted.
Yeah.
How do you ensure, because spam is obviously something everybody hates and everybody dreads, and people have spam filters and they don't want to be hit ever, it seems like. How do you ensure that the stuff that is getting the people, they're actually either enjoying or appreciating, like, you actually fit the right person in this campaign?
It's by making sure that every email you send out, so the database that we work with, we guarantee that everybody in there is completely 100% opt-in. They have opted in to receive an email from a subscriber that they signed up with, or their carefully selected third-party partners.
Is there a system, because if I subscribe to Golf Digest, I might want to see a sale on Callaway golf clubs.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see it every day. Within your analytics or data, are you able to make sure you're not hitting people too much with the same list?
We are. We also maintain a huge unsubscribe list of contacts that don't want to receive an email. We're gonna make sure that they never get an email like that. And the entire data across all these 60 countries, it's all CAN spam compliant, and also follows the spam laws of that particular law of the land.
Can you describe the greatest challenge from my perspective in a business like yours would be compliance? Because some of these, I know especially in the United States, like the CAN spam, there's some gray areas, or at least industries claim that there are gray areas to try to fudge the lines, but you're in how many countries?
60.
Yeah.
And so I assume there's some overarching policies that cover more than one country, but how does that look like in your company when you're trying to develop specific compliance per area, especially when some of your clients may be looking to do certain global pushes or a collection of countries?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a couple of people that are employed that work just on compliance, that attend events globally on data compliance. What does it mean in terms of compliance of how to do marketing within a country like France, or you want to do marketing in China or Japan. What should a campaign look like when you're sending email blasts in Japanese?
Yeah.
You won't get good results if you're sending an email campaign in Japan or China in English. You have to make sure you have to have a native speaker who's going to review the creative that's going out. So coming back to compliance, US has its own laws that is CAN spam. Canada has put in a law called CASL that is even more stricter in terms of compliance than US. So we have guidelines that we follow for each country, and these specialists that work on that, on compliance issues for each country, they work with our data compliance team directly. They guide them on what is considered compliant and non-compliant. We have to self-certify ourselves. We don't have to, we do, to this institution called Privacy Shield. It means that you are complying to global data compliance laws, and we are a member of that.
So give me an example of something that is illegal in the United States to do when it comes to data or email marketing, and then what happens if you do that or get caught?
Well, if I send you an email right now to sell something and that you have never heard from me, you've never opted in to receive an email from me, you probably see, if you go to your spam folder in your personal email like Hotmail, Gmail, messages flow in every day. These email systems, Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo, they've become very smart over the period. They understand what is spam versus what's not.
I got a $25 million opportunity right now in my inbox sitting there.
I got like
There
10
you go,
hot local singles. Can't wait to meet them.
The king of Nigeria is waiting for you
That's
guys
right.
to take 25 million from them.
So once you know the rules of compliance, is that something that's built into your systems to where if you're trying to push a campaign in France or in Hong Kong and it's violating those policies, it doesn't happen? Or is that on the project manager side, having to know each campaign?
It's built into the system.
Okay.
We verify the data before it actually goes into the system. We have contracts with the data sources that are response-based data sources that have an agreement with us saying that the data that we are getting from them is compliant to that country's laws. These people have double opted in to receive an email from them, or a marketing piece. It also complies with direct mail. What could happen?
So someone opts out, but you don't take them off your list and you keep on hitting them. I'm sure that's one of the laws that you can't do.
You broke the law, and like a CAN spam act in the United States, that person can take that email and complain to the DA.
Wow.
And one spammy email could lead to you spending close to about 20 grand
Jeez.
in penalties and fees.
So you cannot make that mistake.
You cannot make that mistake. Absolutely, you cannot.
And people are treading that line, but it's a very
it's a very thin line.
Yeah.
It also screws up your reputation. You're sending out an email. Let's say you send out an email to about 500 people, and a couple of them mark you as spam. Your email provider, your ISP, now knows you're sending spam. It will ding you. You're blacklisted. It affects your reputation of your IP, all that stuff.
Have you ever had a issue like that happen out of your control, where one of your project managers didn't double check something, or the data didn't work, and you kind of got into an unfortunate situation without you knowing?
Sometimes that happens where an email recipient clicks it as spam. That they don't know who this person is or we're getting it from, but we're protected. We have ways to prove it that this person has opted in to receive an email.
Gotcha.
We have an IP stamp on when they subscribed and where they subscribed from. So
yeah, I think some people use the spam button instead of the archive button, which I'm sure in your industry you're like, please don't do that. You're killing me.
Why?
Use the archive button.
So we've talked about a lot of the challenges in the business. What's your favorite part about your business?
Data. Favorite part is how there's actually a couple of things. How I see data being molded in a way that it's slowly becoming very intelligent, and how it really performs for client by client. We have a variety of clients coming from different industries: automotive, financial services, restaurant owners, manufacturing companies, and how we are able to send these campaigns out to what data set and how it performs. I really like to see those reports and how I can better it. And the other part about the business is absolutely the growing team of employees in our company, and how our morale, our team, and mentoring them into something that they understand the true passion about the company.
I'm always fascinated on a tech-based company, because a couple months ago, somebody at Amazon Web Servers accidentally typed in the wrong line of code, and it shut half the internet off for 3 hours. Twitter runs on Amazon Web Servers, and I think Facebook does, and a lot
Slack.
of everything.
Yeah.
So it literally went down for 3 or 4 hours because one human being made a human error. Have you ever ran into that, and how tough is that to know that? I mean, I think in that industry, one line of code or one thing can really disrupt all your analytics or all your percentages, and you have to dig in and find out what you did.
Initially, yes, it's a learning process. When you start off as a company, you have to make sure that you have a, really, really secure data center, that protects, the databases, the email servers that send out the email, have to have a specific level of protection to get into and to send out the emails to. Obviously, initially, we ran into a lot of things where, while growing the business, we wouldn't understand, what part is really absolutely important besides just building databases, and we would, we would sometimes find out that, we sent out more emails than we were supposed to.
Or our campaign never got sent out at all, or something.
Or a campaign never was sent out automatically scheduled at a time. But I think, there were some really good clients that are still with us because of the way we kind of took care, of their campaigns.
So you've been able to really build in those processes after learning those mistakes.
Oh, absolutely.
What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Might sound cheesy, but my father always said, never give up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just look straight, never look down, just keep moving forward, never look back. So, but I actually use that on a daily basis in my life. It's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talked about, growing the number of staff that you have, and that's a joy for you. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's a great challenge with huge payoff, but the bad times can be really bad. What are some of the best and worst parts about managing people?
So the best part is that, what I'm able to offer as a non-monetary value, which is knowledge about our industry, as well as stuff that they learn within the company for their personal growth too.
You just tell people, you have an opportunity to work with a genius, so I'm going to provide you with this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm going to make you a data genius. just stay where you are. You're fine. No, but I really like to see we are a very fun, growing and very innovative company that comes up with innovative ideas almost every day. And the fun part about managing employees is that we are able to instill this this core values that we have within them and help them grow and succeed on what they're trying to do. The least favorite part is when I see someone who's not able to grow or succeed even after providing all the resources that we have at hand, training and everything, and just sometimes this doesn't work. If you have to let them go, I hate that part.
Sure.
It's the worst part.
What do you do when you see maybe an employee, I want to say not working out, but like you said, you give them all the training, you set them up for success, and for whatever reason, they're not performing at the high level. How do you intervene and try to get the most of that person, or do you just, at this point now with all these employees, you just know they're not going to be a fit and you have to move forward?
No, I try to make them work with the project manager and then the lead to see what are they lacking and what area of their skills are they lacking. What can we provide them? Is it something within the company that's bothering them? Is it the team? Or is it anything else?
Right.
Which is not really related to work. We try to provide them, as much leverage as we can to retain them.
Gotcha.
But eventually, there comes a time where you always find out that, okay, it's not a fit.
It's not a good fit.
And you just a moment ago mentioned core values, and you briefly touched on them earlier, I think honesty and innovation and one other, but can you restate your company's core values?
Honesty, innovation, and integrity and transparency, customer-centric, and never give up.
Okay.
These are our core values.
And how do you present that to new staff? Is that something that's on an employee handbook? Do you restate them during quarterly reviews? How do you make sure that everybody knows and remembers those?
We actually go through them almost once a month at our entire staff meetings at all the locations of the company, even with the global staff. It is given to them in the handbook. It is discussed with them, at their initial prep once they are hired. But we make sure that our core values are instilled within them. When they come on board, and they're reminded of that every month.
So it stays prevalent throughout. It sounds like
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great books here, and I think Brett and I have only read 10% of them.
One or two?
We needed to read all of them. But I wanted to see if there's one book that you would recommend to other entrepreneurs, or maybe a book that got you through a tough time with a client or in the business.
I really liked 1 Minute Entrepreneur.
Okay.
By Ken Blanchard. Have you guys read it?
I have not read it.
course not.
It really it's a book. It takes you to the journey of this guy, who kind of during his initial years of college gets arrested, and he's in his friend's car where drugs were found, and then he gets some mentoring and goes to work as a sales guy for this motivational speaker. And from there, he started his own company as a huge motivational speaking company. Throughout this journey of being at one point in his life to becoming more successful and a sustaining business, he learns values of what it is about being in business, creating it, sustaining it, and making it successful. He learns, what family is.
Yeah.
What is the importance of marriage, religion, and a lot of other core values, employee management, employees and teams, they're your people. All of that through this journey.
It's a personal journey of someone's growth as a
Yeah.
human more so than just
yeah,
business
and
owner.
it's really well laid out. I highly recommend it to the entrepreneurs.
And
Go ahead.
so, what does it mean for you to be an entrepreneur?
Being an entrepreneur, I see that as being a gamer. It's like playing a video game, which is really
With no right answers.
challenging, exciting.
Yeah.
You want to get to the final stage of a game. It's not going to be easy. It's fun. You learn something new every day. And if you're playing a game every day, you're learning something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely challenging, but it's so much fun. And it's a way. I mean, the way I look at it is, it's my way of fulfilling my dreams.
At this point, with over 100 global employees, what's your day-to-day look like? Are you able to focus on kind of the future of the business and where you want to see it go, or are you still sometimes digging into code or the back-end stuff and making sure everything's running properly?
I always like to do a security check of the systems. I guess it's just the data geek inside me that wants to do that.
Are there some things that you don't have a lot of background in that you trust other people, or from the top down you pretty much know what everybody's doing and have knowledge in?
I pretty much know. We ran this business ourselves for the first 2 or 3 years, and
That's a big asset because you can check anybody at any time and say,
oh,
no,
absolutely.
this is how we do it.
I know the marketing aspect of it
Yeah.
because we're a marketing company.
Right.
I know the sales aspect of it because we used to be the salespeople.
Yep. Right.
That used to connect with clients, and a company can never succeed without a team.
Yep.
That's what I feel. You cannot do things by yourself, and you have to trust, the people that are doing their jobs, and let them do that. But I do know very well who each person designated for their job is doing, and I know their job too.
Who out there that people may know inspires you in business? I think we always bring up Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk as kind of a cliche answer, but is there anybody in particular that you followed or inspired you?
Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, tenacious guy who never followed up the norm. He's like a phoenix, just thrown down many times and just knew how to get up. He's really his life story is something that.
Now he's fascinating, but there's been a lot written about him and talked about Jobs, about his management style and how he drove people, I think, and made some amazing products. But really, people say he was an asshole to people. So I'm assuming that maybe that part you don't employ, or is there a balance there of pushing people the right way? Or?
There is always going to be a negative side to each entrepreneur. There will never be a perfect entrepreneur.
The kryptonite.
You have a passion, you have a vision that you want to do. Some people will drive others to do it in their way.
Yeah.
And if it's not their way, and if the people are not doing that, they're termed as an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
But yes, there are certain things about his management style that I don't identify with, but his drive to be non-textbookish and do stuff on his own in his thinking of way, which is what I've done with the company too.
Yeah.
I envision data industry in a different way.
I always look at Steve Jobs and think, it was the fact that he was so successful early on, everybody understood pretty quickly that he was a visionary. So they're willing to put up with that. As a management tactic, if you're running a restaurant, that will fail you. But when you're really making seismic moves in a growing industry like he was, I think people are willing to just put up with all the BS because it's like you want to hitch your trailer to his wagon because he's,
So it's a Thomas Edison of a generation.
Yeah.
Well, as an entrepreneur, you have to learn how to say no. You have to say a lot of no's. You have to learn how to say no to really stick to what you really want.
Yep.
To say yes to.
You and I've talked a little bit about work-life balance, and I'm always curious about that question with entrepreneurs. Is maybe early on in your company when you first met your wife, I'm sure it was a struggle with that balance. But how have you figured that part out? Or is that a ever-going evolution of how to balance that?
I don't know any entrepreneur that has figured that out. But
Good answer. It's true.
That is, it's always a challenging part, but I always put family first. It's also related to my roots, being an Indian. But now, I'm an American, and
Yep.
the way we see ourselves as a nuclear American family. I have my wife and a small baby who's 2-year-old. I love seeing him grown up. I want to really be involved in his life and be responsible for his development of what he's going to become.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a tough trade-off to how to exactly balance work and personal, but.
I'll give you another cliche question, is the morning routine, which you've seen a lot of articles written on Inc.com and things like that. But do you have a particular, every morning I do this to get ready for the day?
Every morning I wake up when my wife tells me to wake up. No, my morning routine is pretty much, a set routine. I can never check email without having a cup of masala chai and my son, playing next to me and hugging me. And I spend some time with the family in the morning, at least about an hour every day.
Before you get into the grind.
Before I get into the grind.
Smart.
And head off to work.
What time is usually that process?
I usually get to work around like 8:30
Okay.
in the morning. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's.
But you got a 2-year-old, so you can be up pretty early.
Well, I manage also global operations. I'm
I guess
up
they're
late.
24/7.
So I sleep about 5.5 hours. So that's.
I'm sure that's been tough too, because I'm sure there's been nights where you've had to stay up till 3 in order to be. Are they working on your schedule, or the vice versa sometimes?
It's tough to make 100 people work around your schedule. So it's the vice versa. I make there are people that will work around my schedule when needed. But it pretty much, and I actually enjoy this challenge of being into the grind when needed.
Well, we're obviously we're in client services, so it's a little bit different in terms of potentially selling the company or buying the company. But with your data set, I'm sure that's crossed your mind, or maybe you've been approached in the past. Is that the ultimate goal? Is to eventually sell the company, or is that not in the cards? Or
that's not in the cards right now. I want to create. So I have this vision about the company where I want to create an ecosystem of data that is being offered to different companies. Where, to put it in layman terms, someone who's selling a product in San Diego shouldn't be restricted to selling something domestically.
Sure.
He should have the power to sell that product, if it's really good, to be sold across California, United States, and outside of the country. That's how, I want to create like an Amazon of data, what Amazon has done.
Love it.
It is very impressive, and that's what my...
I meant to ask you earlier, but with Facebook ads and their ability to reach people, because I can reach somebody in my zip code that's a mom that likes Nike running on Facebook and that makes over $100,000 a year. I mean, it's very segmented, and that may have been a market where you guys, your industry really had a stranglehold on. When you see things like Facebook opening up ad API, does that worry you? Does that affect your market, or is it pretty much two separate industries?
No, it
in your
doesn't worry
opinion?
us at all. It's a separate. It's actually an add-on to help other companies and clients and other avenue of marketing. Response-based data will have its own core value and importance. Even if it's a consumer.
Yeah.
If we have so many different demographics we can target by 35 to 55-year-olds in Orange County that make 100K a year, that have 5 kids, that are high school age. We can segment all of that, and target the right kind of people.
With social media, where's the future in your specific company? I mean, are we getting down to a point where this person in Orange County held a Coca-Cola in his hand in a picture back in November, so let's target? I mean, where does this thing go in your opinion in terms of?
It's where is social media going?
I mean, with the add-on of social media, everybody's sharing everything. How,
Yeah.
from a data standpoint, do you see people like yourself grabbing?
I see, though, from the data standpoint, at one point, it's going to integrate very closely with social media. People have already started doing that if I'm sending out a campaign of an email campaign to about 50,000 people, what's the next step? I want to follow up with a phone call, but also let them know on LinkedIn,
Yeah, retargeting.
that we targeted you, and also let them know on their browser that STN Digital reached out to you, and now here's an ad that's coming up every day.
Don't forget, reach back out. Yeah.
Exactly, and
You see that on Amazon a lot with cookies. I mean, you look up a golf club on Amazon, it follows you everywhere you go on the web, it seems like, including Facebook, including Google.
It's retargeting, and it's amazing, how the Internet of Things has changed. It's actually really exciting. You're looking for a car today, and then the next day you'll see car ads everywhere.
It's true.
Yep.
It's like you don't have to go out to buy stuff. Things now will come to you and lure you to buy them.
Curious, just a random question, but you look at CVS and Vons, and they have the Vons Club card or the CVS card. They're tracking everything you buy. That's the reason they do that. Is that also another data subset that you're able to access, or how does that get intertwined in what you're creating?
That's the aspect of what you call big data.
Yeah.
Tracking purchases as well as getting the intelligence out of that on what you bought yesterday and what your buying pattern is like. We don't have access to those specifics like that, but one niche service that we provide that we've just started since the last couple of years is what you call ID verification. We've been providing data from different countries to companies that have a requirement of verifying the identity of a consumer. Because we have access to these large data sets from different countries, companies will sign up with us and we will provide them ID verification. For example, companies like PayPal or Airbnb that have this requirement of who's renting or who's providing their property for rent. They want to verify the identity of that individual. And we provide this service to a few financial institutions that have this requirement where they want to verify someone who comes in to apply for a loan or something like that.
Okay.
So.
And we've talked a lot about business specifically, but on the personal side, what's your end goal for your personal life?
Personal life, I really, really enjoy being healthy and, my family. I want a very happy and healthy family that I want to see my children growing up and be involved in their development at all stages of life, be it education, sports, making sure that, I absolutely want a couple more kids. So having a big family.
Do you want straight A's and your kids to be an engineer?
And it is no, absolutely not. Well, yes, I would love my kid to get straight A's, but every individual, and this comes from a learning of how to manage employees. Every individual has their own skill set and their own personality,
different passions, different ways they gain success.
I want them to follow, and go become a rocker, if you want to.
So we'll leave it on this. Obviously, a lot of people that listen and watch like to be inspired by people's stories. So any advice you would give to entrepreneurs out there that want to succeed at the sport? I'll call it a sport.
Never give up.
Yeah.
There's one thing about that I really like about what Steve Jobs said is that a lot of times life will throw a brick at your head. Just have faith. Never give up. If you have a dream or a passion, if you think that says something that will make a difference, believe in yourself, and do it.
Yeah, and every time I'm frustrated, I just sit there like, why is this happening? But it's like, if it's easy, if it was easy, everybody would do it. There's a reason why less than 1% of people are entrepreneurs, and the top 1% is making all the money, because it's a lot of bricks are getting thrown at your head daily in order to succeed.
It's not easy, but if you just don't give up and do it, hey, things will fall in place.
Very cool.
Real good stuff, Tony. We appreciate it. Episode 25, Entrepreneur Rep. Once again, Tony Raval from FrescoData. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.